Welcome back, everybody. Today's video is quite an interesting one. The last few days have been plagued with a lot of Starfield reviews and everybody voicing their opinions. Lots of good reviews and some questionable ones as well. The community, including both players and reviewers, seem to be mixed in their analyses of Starfield. I'm here today to do an ultimate review of reviews. We are going to look at the review score data from OpenCritic. This will entail looking at the 92 review scores that were scored with some form of a number. 8 of the reviews on OpenCritic did not qualify, as they were rated either unscored, by, recommended, or were given a letter grading. My goal is to give you guys an informed, unbiased analysis of what all the reviews are saying about Starfield, not just the 1 or 2 that are screaming their opinions the loudest. After we analyze the OpenCritic data, I'm going to summarize the largest negative points and the largest positive points from the majority of the reviewers. So how did I analyze the data about the reviews? Firstly, I created a database of all the scores. With that database, we binned the data, and the output was a bar chart as we see here. This bar chart shows you how many reviews there are within the various score groups. For example, there is one review with a score between 50 and 60. There are 14 reviews with scores between 70 and 80, etc., etc. There should be no surprise that the majority of the reviews are coming with scores above 80 over 100, as we can see here on the bar chart, since it is rated 88 over 100 on OpenCritic. If we normalize the data into a bell curve, as shown here, we get a mean, or average, of 89.13, which varies slightly from the 88 that OpenCritic is showing, due to the fact that we are excluding those 8 reviews that did not give a number rating. A standard deviation basically represents how spready our data is. For example, if you had a set of numbers 1, 3, 5, and another set of numbers 1, 30, 500, the standard deviation of the 1, 3, 5 is going to be much smaller than the set of 1, 30, 500, as the group of numbers for 1, 3, 5 are much closer together than 1, 30, 500. So back to our Starfield discussion. The standard deviation is 9.55 for the review data, and we said our average was 89.13. One approach to looking at outliers in the data is to look at the data points that are 2 standard deviations away from the mean or average. Why? Because all of the data that is within 2 standard deviations of the mean is representative of 95% of the total data. So we can say that the remaining 5% are outliers. So for our data, the value of the 2 standard deviations away from our 89 average is 70.02. This means that any review with a score of 70 or less is essentially an outlier when compared to the rest of the data set. Going back to our bar chart, we see that the 2 bins of 50 to 60 and 60 to 70 fall into outlier territory. There are a total of 7 reviews out of 92 that we can consider outliers. The following news outlets are responsible for those 7 reviews: IGN, GameSpot, PC Games and Paste Magazine, Saudi Gamer, PC Mag, and Digital Trends. So what exactly does that mean? It means that these particular news outlets are not in tune with the rest of the reviewers. This isn't to say that what they are saying isn't important, but that their scores just don't really fall in line with what the majority of the other reviewers believe. Here's a couple more interesting facts about this data. There are 19 review outlets that gave Starfield a perfect score, and here's a list of those outlets. Finally, the median, or most commonly found review score, was 90. A total of 29 reviewers gave Starfield a 90 out of 100. Now that we've looked at the data, let's see exactly what were the most popular negative points and most popular positive points from these reviews. So let's rip off the band-aid and start with the bad. Starfield is a massive world but feels small due to the many zone transitions requiring loading screen. The transitions, while they break the immersive aspect of the game, are relatively quick. So if I'm playing devil's advocate here, yes, they do break immersiveness, but at the same time, they are relatively quick, anywhere between 2 to kind of 10-ish seconds. Point number 2, spaceflight can be avoided, and you can jump from planet to planet compared with prior Bethesda titles that allowed you to Forrest Gump your way across the entire map. Hard to compare with prior titles as they were much smaller in scope. Very difficult to make a game that spans so many galaxies and systems and have it be continuous in nature. I personally appreciate that I'm given a choice whether I want to use spaceflight or not. I'm not a huge fan of racing or flying games, so I generally don't care much for these types of sequences in games. I still enjoyed the space battles and flying around in Starfield from time to time, but the option to skip spaceflight is a nice touch in my opinion. Number 3, the zone maps are terrible. You get relatively minimal detail and it has almost no value. The first time really going through New Atlantis was a nightmare for someone like me who had a bad sense of direction. I couldn't figure my way around. I was looking for specific stores in order to sell specific merchandise and I just couldn't find it. The zone maps need a serious reworking. Inventory management isn't great. Constantly having to transfer stuff as you get overloaded. Well, there's nothing really new here. Go to Fallout 4, go to Fallout 76. You'll see this as a common feature. However, again, playing devil's advocate, there were more options in, like, for example, Fallout 76, where you could just drop chests across the map, which had access to your storage, and then you could, go to one of those chests and easily drop it off. Compared to what you do with Starfield, where you transfer stuff to your companions, you transfer stuff to your ship, and then once everybody's full, you kind of have to go and sell. Point number 5, too much copy-paste procedural generation. There's lots of peripheral planets that have similar procedurally generated content and look almost identical. There are even some quests that require you to do the exact same repetitive tasks like 6 times in a row. It can be a little bit tedious at times, I agree. On the flip side, the game is incredibly massive and you don't need to absolutely go everywhere. These complaints exist because the game offers so much, but not everything needs to be done. Prior Bethesda titles, the game was smaller in scope, so everything in the game could be different. Good luck trying to make 1,000 planets that are all completely different. Development of that game would finish in 2050. Last point is, it takes too long to get going. It's a very slow start. The start is slower for sure, and it takes at least 5 hours before it really picks up, but it makes sense given the story of the main character. A lowly miner that just happens to find something of value for the Constellation Corporation and then gets thrust into a world of interstellar madness. I don't expect Constellation to just hand over the keys to their Bentley of ships and give you access to weapons as strong as the Death Star from the beginning. Now that we've talked about the bad, let's talk about the good. First, the game is as true as can be of a Bethesda RPG. You are able to be whoever you want to be, and you can approach the game from all sorts of different perspectives, such as whether you want to be a space pirate, a loyal servant of the Constellation, be your own solo mercenary, or everything in between. The side content defines the game. This is point number 2. Some of the side quest lines are impeccable. You can find yourself in wildly entertaining situations where you are blackmailing characters, robbing targets, mediating corporate disputes, infiltrating facilities, or even just having a good old-fashioned shootout. Point number 3. Combat system will feel good and familiar to players who have experienced the Fallout games. There's no VAT system, but the fast-paced, exhilarating gameplay is the same. The ability to craft weapons goes a long way to helping you become the character you imagined. Do you want to kill enemies from afar with a rifle? Go for it. Want to hack and slash your enemies to death with an ice pick? Go for it. Starfield is a massive sandbox that you can get lost in for hundreds, even thousands of hours. Even the developers mentioned getting feedback from players early on that some of them didn't even really touch the main quest line. They kept doing side content, exploring peripheral planets, interacting with new factions for something like 60 or 80 hours before they even decided to go back to the main content. The amount of stuff Starfield has is insane. Next point, the skill tree allows your character to become the best version of who you want them to be. Maybe you want to be a gunslinger and focus on improving your combat abilities. Maybe you want to be more political in your gameplay and improve your social skills. After you put a point into a skill, you're able to level it up by doing challenges stated on that skill. So the amount of builds that can come out of Starfield are huge. I'm expecting build videos to come out for the next 6 months and still not be done at that point. Finally, the game is incredibly beautiful and has stunning landscapes and panoramas. You can captain your way across the universe with custom ships, full of crew you've chosen, and engage in battles with other ships that then you're also able to board in some situations. In summary, the OpenCritic score for Starfield is 88 out of 100. 2023 has been a year filled with absolutely incredible games, a year of similar caliber to, dare I say it, 2007. While Starfield, in my opinion, isn't a perfect game, it really is a phenomenal game that rightfully takes its place with the other greats produced by Bethesda. Maybe the other amazing games that have come out this year have let us lose a little bit of perspective of what exactly makes a phenomenal game. This data analysis that I've done has shown that the majority of reviewers also believe that, with only a handful giving low scores that don't really resonate with the rest of the data. There are certainly some important negative points that were brought up by many reviewers, including the loading screens, terrible zone maps, and too much copy-paste procedural generation. However, this is heavily outweighed by the positive praises the majority of reviewers were singing for Starfield. This involves incredible game-defining side content, Starfield being as true of an RPG as they come, a massive sandbox world that you can lose yourself in for hundreds, if not thousands of hours, and last but not least, the breathtaking beauty of the game. I hope I've given you guys something extra to think about when you're looking at reviews regarding Starfield. As always, if you've enjoyed the video, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. The support is always appreciated, and I will catch you guys next time. See ya.